Coming up, the Tories are attempting to recover Boris Johnson's reputation by launching what the Prime Minister himself has dubbed Operation Save Big Dog. So far, it has backfired spectacularly, with the public pretty quick to latch on to the plan for the dog in question to cock his leg and urinate over a selection of junior officials who are expected to resign over Partygate in order to preserve his premiership and allow him to carry on sniffing butts, wiping his arse on the carpet and whatever else big dogs like him generally do. Big dog operation? More like yet another dead cat operation, as the Tories simultaneously launch Operation Red Meat, ramping up the rhetoric and accelerating their ongoing authoritarian agenda in a pathetic attempt to rally the most unpleasant sector of their support. Stay tuned. If you enjoy the channel, please like, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of future videos. The Tories are desperate. The decision to claim self-isolation and hide Johnson away after his disgraceful non-apology at PMQs last week showed him up as the coward that he truly is. They also desperately tried to push the Chinese spy story, highlighting how Labour MP Barry Gardiner had taken contributions from Christine Lee for his constituency office and employed her son on his staff. All this, of course, was done with full transparency on the part of Gardiner and with the knowledge of MI5. And the story spectacularly backfired on the Tories yet again when it was revealed that Boris Johnson himself took £45,000 from her himself, yet didn't declare it, and that both David Cameron and Theresa May also had connections with Lee. It's a similar story with attempts by the Daily Fail to tar Keir Starmer with the same Partygate brush as Johnson, with a photo of Starmer having a beer with staff in an office while working on the Hartlepool by-election campaign. The inconvenient truth is that mixing indoors for work purposes was totally within the rules at that time. Desperate stuff. Meanwhile, the Tories are suggesting we all move on from Partygate. And to encourage the Tory base to do exactly that, Operation Red Meat has been launched. The red meat in question being the Union Jack bedecked, authoritarian and nationalistic agenda that appeals to the least savoury elements of the right-wing vote. I think the very term Operation Red Meat, which the Tories have used to describe this campaign, shows their complete disregard and disrespect for their voters. Boris Johnson is the man who rose to power on the promise to take back control from the EU and to deliver us our freedom. But the agenda he and his UKIP government have been pursuing is seizing control for themselves and stripping away the freedoms of the British public. There's a whole bunch of measures that are likely to pass in 2022, which will see the UK travel even further down the road towards autocracy. British democracy is already in a very sorry state, with a cartoonish monarchical system supported by a bloated, unelected chamocracy of a second chamber with over 800 members that dwarfs the European Parliament, an archaic first-past-the-post system that protects the two main parties from upstart new parties, and with the Prime Minister elected to the position by a meagre 92,153 Tory party members. In other words, 99.9% of the UK population as a whole didn't actually vote for him. But even this deeply flawed democracy is under attack by this authoritarian Johnson government. And the worrying thing is, the full impact of this legislative assault on our civil liberties has pretty much passed the British public by. And that's not surprising. The list of bills going through Parliament is very long, and when looked at as a whole, it's a bit overwhelming. Probably deliberately so. But there's no doubt it's incredibly repressive and brings to mind the kind of measures currently being introduced in Hong Kong under Carrie Lam's pro-Beijing administration. Let's have a quick run through. Number 1, the Elections Bill, which will suppress the vote and disenfranchise literally millions by introducing mandatory voter ID. This is justified by the government by claiming that it's in response to voter fraud. But it's a solution without a problem. There are more people struck by lightning in this country than commit voter fraud, which is incredibly rare. The bill also provides the government with new powers over the independent elections regulator, meaning we could see the appointment of partisan officials overseeing future elections, much as the Republican Party are doing in the USA. Number 2. Pritla Patel's Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Bill, an incredibly repressive, authoritarian and also very broad piece of legislation that effectively bans protest in England and Wales. The police are to be handed powers to shut down demonstrations that create serious disruption. Whatever that means, it's up to the police to decide. But that threshold could be reached just by making a noise. Those involved in such a demonstration would face prison sentences or hefty fines. Or even worse, Pritla Patel's take on the ASBO, the Blair-era antisocial behaviour order, which allows for draconian measures against someone attending such a protest, allowing them to be summoned at any time in the future to attend a police station or any other location, or to be stopped and searched and automatically face prison if found to be carrying protest-related items, such as a banner or a pair of handcuffs or a tube of superglue that could be used for locking on, a tactic that this bill also makes illegal. The bill could eventually make it all but impossible to attend a demonstration without committing a criminal offence. And it gets even worse. There are trespass provisions in the bill which make residing on land without consent in or with a vehicle a criminal offence, eradicating gypsy, Roma and traveller communities. Other provisions include suspicionless stop and search tactics, which we all know disproportionately affect black and other minority communities, who are routinely singled out for police attention. And let's not even think about the Sarah Everard type situation and how such sweeping police powers will impact women. The expansion of police powers would also allow officers free access to confidential personal education and healthcare records without consent of the individual concerned. Number 3, the Nationality and Borders Bill. As if Britain's immigration policy isn't already hostile enough and one of the toughest in the world, this bill seeks to criminalise asylum seekers who take unsanctioned routes. Refugees who arrive by boat, for example, could face up to 4 years in prison, regardless of the international validity of their claim for safe haven. The bill also provides for circumstances where claimants can be kept in concentration camp-style housing and offshore processing centres. And for all of you dual citizens watching, I have news for you. Not even British citizens are safe. A late amendment slipped into the bill by the Pritla empowers the government to remove British citizenship from dual nationals without notice. Those singled out might not even have recourse to the law, as number 4 is the reform of the Human Rights Act, making it easier for the government to deport foreign nationals and completely deny them claims of mistreatment. Now there's a thought. The immigrant Boris Johnson has dual citizenship, having been born in America. But before he's eventually deported, his criminal, corrupt, authoritarian government will have passed number 5, the Judicial Review and Courts Bill, which puts the final nail in the coffin of our democracy. This bill centralises power, allowing Big Dog and his ministers to overrule judicial review findings that challenge their agenda. The amazing work carried out by Jolyon Morm and the Good Law Project, amongst many others, has proved such an inconvenience to this law-breaking shambolic cabal that they're legislating it away by taking power from the courts and handing it to government, meaning less challenge from the pesky law and those opposed to government wrongdoing. Number 6, the Online Safety Bill. Now, this has been floated as being designed to regulate big tech, but many lawyers, badged as activists, left-wing do-gooders by this appalling government, point out that it could be used to silence critics on social media, critics like me, muting and censoring whistleblowers reporting details about government activities that the government would rather the public didn't know about. The goal is no more of those judges labelled as enemies of the people, or those overly inquisitive journalists labelled as spies interfering with government business. Leaving Wales and Scotland aside, since the start of the Brexit referendum campaign in 2016, I feel that much of England has adopted a nasty sense of nationalism of the worst kind. Amongst aggressive talk about trade wars, world beating this, that and the other, and this us versus them mentality, which extends within the population as vast swathes of people pick their political team and defend the indefensible. What James O'Brien refers to as the footballification of politics. Hence, all the Boris Johnson fanboys and girls in Parliament and beyond lining up to defend his despicable, amoral behaviour, putting party before country. Now, I'm generally a Labour voter, but they're not my team to be followed blindly without criticism. And it has to be said, a lot of this legislation seems to be so far disappointingly unopposed by the official opposition. But for balance, what can the Labour Party effectively do, faced by a massive majority in the Commons, handed to the Tories by a combination of the electorate and the not-fit-for-purpose first-past-the-post system? And despite the commendable efforts of a whole range of groups campaigning, protesting and suing to protect our democracy and basic freedoms, a real groundswell of public opinion opposing these bills seems a long way off. And if it ever happens, it'll be too late. This raft of legislation will take decades to unpick. But like many authoritarians who grab power, Boris Johnson and his menagerie of the incompetent and corrupt haven't given consideration to a future where they won't be the ones calling the shots. The legacy of his power grab by way of a take back control mantra will be for whatever is left of the UK to be a country whose population have been robbed of fundamental rights and freedoms.